We are live. Welcome to the Bradbury Challenge, the podcast where three writers attempt to write one short story each week. My name is Maya, and I am here with Chrissy and Gerald. How are you guys doing this week?
Good.
I'm mostly
Ooh. But how's your writing?
Oh, I don't know if I want to talk about it.
Oh, well, it's a bit. This is a podcast about writing.
I
know. Okay, Gerald. So, Gerald, did you start your science fiction story?
No, I didn't. It's still too hard. It's I've made progress on it, and I think I'm nearly there on how I'm going to move between alternate universes. I'm pretty sure I've got that nailed. So if I suddenly disappear, you'll know. Press the button.
I love it. My writing went really well. I was going to start a science fiction story last week, but like you, I started outlining it and realized science fiction short stories are hard. So I attended a writing class yesterday at the local library here in New Orleans, and I came away from it with 3 flash fiction stories that were written from prompts, and we were only allowed to write for 5 minutes.
Excellent.
So you finished 3 stories yesterday?
Well, 2 of them are finished. One is not. The finished ones are crap. They need revised. But yes, I have 3 new short stories to work on. Yeah, it's kind of
Maya,
weird.
who are you, and what have you done with Maya?
It was the class. It was the class, forcing myself to get out of my comfort zone. And I'm trying this new thing out where I'm trying to say yes to things. And if I want to say no to something, I have to think about it for a few moments before I'm allowed to say no. And so someone invited me to this writing class. He found out about it at a local bar, and I attended. And it wasn't the best class in the world, but it was really nice to get around a bunch of new people, and it was in a nice location. And, it just jiggled the brain loose.
It made you write 3 flash fictions. I think that was a very good class for you.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. It was amazing. It's like Gerald said, sometimes you need to just try something new.
Right.
That's very good. Yeah, I was my writing this week was class related. Well, it's a writing group, and every month we have homework, so we have to write 500 words before the next meeting, and based on a prompt of some sort. We give each other the prompt. And this is going to blow your mind. This prompted me to write something that I wanted to write for a long time, and it's over 2,000 words.
Yeah. Woohoo! That's awesome. What was the prompt?
It was taking a wrong turn. So I wrote something that I've thought about for a while about being on holiday in France and programming a sat-nav system wrong, so it takes you the wrong way, and then horrible things happen. So, but then, of course, I had 2,000 words, so I had to write a separate flash fiction based on that for 500 words for the group. So I wrote 2 stories.
And how about you?
I wrote 300 words this week.
Good. That's all right.
Okay.
In total?
Total.
Whoa.
So that is the lowest I've written in a week in over a year.
Years.
Wow.
And part of it is I got sick, and so when I get sick, my body just goes into shutdown, and I sleep. I ended up sleeping for 2 or 3 days straight.
Huh. Wow.
So
we're gonna ban Chrissy from attending conventions because every time she goes someplace, she catches
a cold. It's so sad, and I have 2 more
convention crud.
Because I went to PAX for a day, and when I got back, I did not feel good.
Yeah. So the 300 words, was it on your novel? Was it on a short story?
I'm trying to edit that short story so I could get it published.
Mm-hmm.
I did manage to redo all the covers for that series, but that's because it took less brain power than actually writing.
Yeah.
I like doing covers when I'm sick because it doesn't require me to actually think much.
Very good.
And then
Thinking's overrated, I guess, is what she's saying.
That's right.
Yeah.
I am totally there. That's exactly where I'm at right now.
That's really funny. So, Gerald, you go to a lot of writing, like groups and stuff. I know last week you were heading off to a writers group in a pub. What do you look for in a writers group or class?
What do I look for? Basically, people who write either similar sort of stuff or of similar sort of interests, or yeah, because there are two groups I go to that are all about short stories, flash fiction, that sort of thing, and so everybody writes fiction, very short fiction, and no poetry, none of this other stuff, and this other stuff. It's just sweeping generalizations, but yeah. So we all have a sort of common aim, although we all write different things. And the other group I go to is a novel critiquing group, where we're all writing novels, and we submit sections of our novel to the group, and we analyze that and give feedback, and so it's really people with common aims and common interests, I think.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was wondering, just because like I ended up at this class just on a fluke, and it was really, really a simplistic class. But I think after having been in a situation where I'm writing with a lot of different people, I think I'm going to look for a class for myself, like a group of people that just sit and write and go through their writing with each other. I'm going to be here for a few months, and I think it would be good for me just based on how I felt coming out of that. It felt very renewing, very refreshing to be around a bunch of writers again. It's definitely something I was missing and hadn't really noticed.
Yeah, I think it makes a huge difference to have support from other writers, even if it's online support. But that support must be from people that you get to know, and people that you trust, and people that whose opinions you value as well. So that's I think it takes 3, 4, 5 meetings of a group before everyone sort of understands each other and where everyone's coming from and that sort of thing.
Definitely. How about you, Chrissy? Are you involved in any groups still? I know you used to be.
I used to be involved in a lot of groups, but they were all online, and they took a lot of time.
Yeah, I find online classes take up way more time than in-person classes, and you would think it would be the opposite.
Right.
Yeah.
And I found that they were really beneficial at the time, but I've grown beyond them, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was doing them, I was doing the critiques, and they were giving me good feedback on where I can improve with my writing, and I think in my current state of writing, I've gotten beyond what I could get out of that kind of a class.
Yeah.
Maybe if it was more specific or about something that I don't generally write, it would be beneficial, but I'm mostly fantasy and science fiction, and so I've got that. Any more development on my part, I would need a developmental editor, or somebody who is going to go through it with a fine-tooth comb and pick it apart.
Yeah.
Which you don't
definitely
get at a writer's workshop.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can, but those writers' workshops are usually long. They're usually like 1 to 2 week long, very writers-focused conferences.
And they usually don't do like really long works. They do shorter stuff.
Yeah. Like when I went to the Napa Valley Writers Workshop, I think I submitted, I think it was like 10,000 words of my novel, or maybe more. It ended up being about the first 3 chapters, so it might have been 15. But we picked that apart. It was so flippin' helpful. It was ridiculous. And the things I learned are things that are definitely going to change the entire rest of the piece. I would like to find something like what Gerald's doing. This class that I went to, I didn't really learn anything, but what it was good for was getting me out of my house, getting me around a bunch of other writers, getting some words down on paper. It was more like, I don't know, it was like going and playing around a mini golf. You know, it was going skating around the ring. Yeah, it was really fun. But I would like to have a group of people that are all writing novels to sit down and work through, you know, sections at a time with each other. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah. That's quite unusual to find a real life group that is specifically about novels and novel critique, because I'm so lucky. And, you know, it's in the next small town about 3 miles away, so it's fantastic.
It's really rare. I've actually never heard of such a thing.
Well, I live in Seattle, so I know there's some around here. They're on Meetup all the time. It's just they aren't generally at a good time for me to actually go join them.
Yeah, Samantha Chang, she led a novel revision class. It was like a month-long class one summer at Iowa Writers Workshop, and it was open to the public, and you could register and take this class to learn, you know, to go through your entire novel. And it's something that if it's ever run again, I don't care where I am in the world, I will figure out a way to pay for it and go. Because I really liked her teaching style. I liked her critique. She got where my novel was going, and I felt like I learned so much from her class. But in the thought of spending a whole month revising my work with a set of really experienced guys and a bunch of other people learning, it's just like, I would learn so much from something like that. Yeah. I know I would.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's pretty difficult, because you with any real life group, you get people of all sorts of abilities and capabilities, and I've been in at least one group, maybe others, where there were some beginning writers who had major issues with their writing, and it's kind of hard work to look at longer pieces when like 2 paragraphs has got a dozen mistakes and problems with it. So just sort of think, I can't wade through the rest of it. You know, you need to get some basics right first. Get the basics, learn your grammar, learn your sentence construction, then work on something longer. But you know, but then people are sort of poured half their life into these things sometimes, and you think, oh, yeah,
and that's where you get the situation where you talk to a lot of new novelists who have been recently traditionally published, and they'll tell you they were working on that debut novel for 12, 14, 15 years, because they were actually learning the craft of writing as they were revising it. And I know I talked to a lady last year, and she was finally getting her book published, and she had been workshopping her piece 5 pages at a time for the past, decade at at one of the best writers' workshops in the country. And she came away from it with an amazing piece, but she also came away from it really knowing how to write. I don't know how you balance that. I really don't. I know Gotham Writers Workshops, you have to take introductory classes before they'll let you in the more advanced classes. I like that system. I feel like there's a lot of beginning classes and a lot of advanced classes, but there's not a lot for in between.
Yeah. That's why I like short fiction. That's why I like flash fiction particularly, because you can develop your writing skills very much more quickly and very much more easily, and people are much more likely to read something of 500 words or something and say, yeah, right, now you need to work on this and that, rather than giving someone 10,000 words. They're going to go, oh, I can't. So I'm such a fan of short fiction for that, for learning how to write. It is vital, I think. Well, it's not vital, but it's much more important.
You're going to be a writer.
Yeah.
I know in picking new authors to read, I tend to buy a lot of anthologies, so I can test their writing and see if if their writing appeals to me. So I think it's the same way that way. And I think that's why we tell, newer authors, younger authors, start with short stories, because they're short, you can learn. But I learned more from writing my first novel than I ever did with the short stories. I learned to finish things with the short stories, but with the novel, I learned to construct a story. It was a crappy novel. I would never let anyone else read it ever again, but I learned so much from doing it that writing that first novel is a unique experience that any author should have.
Yeah, it is a very unique experience. I can't say I learned more from writing my first novel. I will say I learned more from editing a series of short stories than I did from writing the rough draft of my novel. And I'm sure I'm going to learn even more when I'm done revising my novel. But I'm not revising that first novel. I'm revising the second novel because I learned so much between writing that first rough draft and then writing and editing a bunch of short stories that when it came time to write my second book, it's just significantly better.
Yeah. And I think I'm useless at remembering who said things, but somebody once said you have to write 1,000,000 words before you know how to write. And I think,
yeah, I still got a ways to go.
No, I'm way past that. But I don't, and I still don't know how to write. But I think a lot of people start off by writing a novel and expect that to be good because in their head it's good and other people say it's good and when you release it, let other people see it, it's not so good. And that's really hard for someone who's put so much effort into writing, creating the story and writing the story. So that's really hard to because I've seen the disappointment on someone's face when they receive not harsh critique but honest critique, which says there are technical issues with your writing, and that's it's tough. But I think, as part of the group, we worked on that, and we said, the story idea is great, and you're obviously good at putting in the hours to write the thing. So just go back a little and learn how to construct things in a more traditional way, shall we say, and then it works much better.
You have to learn the basics before you break them.
Yeah,
totally.
Oh yeah,
totally. And actually, okay, I'm going to step my foot in it and get a little controversial here. I actually think that's one of the benefits of the gatekeepers for debut writers is having someone stand in your own way to say, this sucks, go back to the drawing board. It's really easy to just publish that first book way before it's ready right now. And a lot of novelists who will be great novelists now have in their resume they published too soon.
I've never got a this sucks, go back to the drawing board kind of thing from the traditional publishers. I always got, sorry, this doesn't fit our thing at this time. And it's like,
yes,
it's good, but it just doesn't fit what we need. So,
and that is a good thing to receive. When you receive a letter like that, that's saying something, but there's a lot of people who aren't receiving any letters at all because they're not even sending anything out.
True.
Which is both a plus and a minus, because then if it is shit, then no one's telling them it's shit. And if it's good, but there's just no market, no one's telling them it's good, but there's just no market. Good but no market is going somewhere. Shit is shit.
I think a lot of traditional publishers, though, they just send that form letter and saying, sorry, not interested, and they don't actually tell you it's shit.
A lot of them do. When I was submitting short stories, I didn't get my first personalized rejection letter until story 6 or 7. And when I got that rejection letter, I learned a lot. And for me, when I am prepared to send out my novel, getting going from receiving form rejection letters to personalized rejection letters is actually a level of accomplishment. It is a level of, this is good enough for me to take my time to write you a proper rejection letter. And then going from receiving a proper rejection letter to receiving a letter of interest is another milestone. A lot of people are forgetting that going from a form rejection to a personalized rejection is actually a good thing.
Right.
One more step up the ladder if you're talking about traditional publishing. And if you don't really understand that, you see these rejection letters that are just form letters, and it's frustrating. I think I got form rejection letters for the first year and a half before I got a personalized one. And then when I got the personalized one, the stuff that was said in the letter really spurred me on and helped me re-edit all my other stories so that they were much better. They weren't perfect, but they were significantly better after the things that had been said in the personalized one.
Right.
Yep.
It's very different. I had sat down and if I had sat down and stories a year and a half ago, that would have been very, if I had published past last year, like everybody wanted me to do, I would have definitely regretted it. They're just not I think that.
I think one of the things that new writers need to learn is to manage expectations. And I see so many people who publish their first novel and then cry because it's not getting much in sales, and how do I sell more? How do I get more reviews? How do I do, and you take a look at it, and within a page you can see problems all over the place. And so I think you need to know what to expect from your first novel, and I think when self-publishing became more common, I think it was too easy to look at the big names in self-publishing and think, wow, they've just published their novel and away they go and they're earning tons, and I think people thought, I can write.
Well, everybody thinks they can write. Everybody.
Oh, yes.
It's one of those things where we all know how to speak, so we think we know how to write. I wish it was less expensive to get a developmental editor, because that level of investment is one of the things that stands in a lot of new self-published writers' way. They write that first book, they really need a developmental editor, but they can't afford one. So they workshop it with a bunch of people who don't write, and then they put it out there, and it may have really major problems, but they may not be able to afford a developmental editor, until they've written 10 books.
Right.
Yeah, it's that sort of chicken and egg thing, isn't it? You can't expect to earn money from your writing so you can improve it you can't earn money from bad writing. It just ain't going to work.
Chrissy, I remember when you were going through that editing process, you said you learned a lot from your editor.
I did. I learned, so I have the same editor as the guys from Self-Publishing Podcast, and I prefer to work with him, but I did go through an edit with another woman who was like, she came from traditional publishing, and she was a lot, I wouldn't say harsh, but it didn't come with the same encouragement and I guess perks as working with Jason does, because she just did her job. She did the editing, and for me that was a lot harder. That is a personal problem that I have, where I need the encouragement that says, okay, this is what I do like, this is what you're doing well, keep doing more of that, and this is what you need to work on. I work better that way. And
which, by the way, I still need to get her name from you.
You want her to?
She's my perfect. Yeah, she's like my perfect editor. Right. I worked with Jason and I liked him so much, but I needed something a little bit more bang me over the head and drag me back to the editing cave.
Yeah, it really is. I guess a style, maybe.
Because he's really encouraging. That's what's great. I think he's a great first editor. you know, especially because he is so encouraging, and you don't come away from it feeling demoralized.
Right. And so he's encouraging, but he also is like, you need to work on this. You keep doing the same thing over and over. Stop doing it. So I get both.
Do you know me and him had a fight over the English version of Grey and the American version of Grey?
Oh no.
I would not be surprised.
It's funny.
I've had a couple of different things where I'm like, no, I'm going to do it this way. This is the way it needs to be done.
I have a pet peeve about the way Americans spell Grey.
We fight
Major
over...
pet peeve of mine. I find it visually ugly.
There's a few things that is the word drug. It's not apparently grammatically correct to use the word drug instead of dragged.
Oh,
I hate that word. I despise that word. It doesn't sound like a real word.
You can use drug in dialogue, but you can't use it as a narrator.
Yeah, so I will avoid using that word because to me it's not a real word. I never heard it in
because you're on the West Coast.
Because
we don't say drugged on the West Coast.
Exactly. And so I was just like, nope, I'm just going to avoid using that word because I don't like it. It doesn't feel like a real word.
It took me years to be able to read dragged and have it not jog in my brain like a giant
I know, right?
hiccup. It just looks so funny on paper when you say drug all the time.
Weird.
It sounds funny. But that's because we're West Coasters and we speak West Coast.
But that's the thing about language, though. There are dialects. We tend to think of English as one language, but really it's not. I mean, if you go read something from Australia, it's going to be slightly different than something you read from England or something you read from different parts of the U.S. We don't.
And that's one of those things where when you're publishing something, if you're going to write it in West Coast, you need to make a point to write it in West Coast and to have the rest of the book all written in West Coast.
Right. Yeah, and it's obnoxious.
I agree. I actually had a problem with the last book we read on the book club because it's set in England, but whoever edited the American version changed all the spellings to American. And it kept jogging me because it's supposed to be in England, and I'm reading it and I'm thinking it's in America, and then every once in a while I'm reminded it's in England, and it's so confusing, and I would have just preferred to write it in English, like UK English, than in American English with a bunch of UK words stuck in random places. It was very confusing.
Yeah, I read a short story that it was an okay story. The actual story was a decent enough story, but it kept having things that I thought were misspelled, and I'm not sure that they were misspelled because it was like the British spelling of something, like the word curb was not spelled right, and I'm like, I couldn't tell if it was supposed to be British spelling or English or American spelling, or if the person was just really bad at spelling. I couldn't tell. So.
That's so funny. What were you thinking, Gerald?
Yeah, I think it's I'm sure it's a problem that a lot of people have when they're self-publishing and thinking, oh, I can't sell my British book in the States because all the words are wrong. And I've tried writing in American, and it doesn't work. I can't write it. I use American words. But
are you saying you need a translator?
No.
Yes, actually, I think a lot of books go through translators, because the book we just read, I'm sure that they handed the UK book to an American translator and had them translate it to American English, and that's why it bothered me so much. I've read enough books in British English that if it's set in Britain and you're using a bunch of British words, I need British spelling. Otherwise, I think it's in America.
Right.
I think that's right. I think if you translate something, it's not going to work. You write in your native tongue, and I remember it was a discussion maybe on Kindle boards or somewhere about writing for a different country, and people said, "No, I'm an American. I can read English books. It's not a problem." And vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
We read American books all the time, and it's an American book. People talk American, and the language and the rhythm of dialogue is different. So you can't.
I wouldn't say that there is no problem. because I started reading Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, and I love the book, but it is very UK centric. You can tell the language and the words and everything is UK. Plus, it's a little older English than modern English.
Right.
So it took me longer to read it than reading just a normal paranormal romance off the shelf.
Normal as in American.
I think, I think for a lot of readers that do read a lot of both, it's not a problem. But then again, I can't say there's no problem because I've seen the reviews on UK books where people are talking about how the book needed an editor. Or I remember in particular watching a video, a young girl was talking, she was in BookTube, and she was talking about a book she had recently written and how frustrating it was that there was grammatical errors throughout the whole thing, and she was talking about the quotation marks being different. And I had to go into the comments and explain that the quotation marks are reversed in UK English. It's not an error. You're reading a British book.
Right.
And I personally don't think that's a problem with the writing.
Quotation marks were
or a problem with the marketing. Single quotation marks versus double quotation marks.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
You haven't seen that? Well,
No.
Yeah. In American English, you use double quotation marks when someone's talking. You use single quotation marks when someone is quoting something that somebody said. And in this book, everything was reversed, which is the way it's supposed to be. But she was very confused by it. And I think that in her case, it was more of an education issue where everything she's reading in school is in American English. She's not being exposed to UK English and Australian English. And she's a writer, but she hasn't read that widely.
Well, it's like the first time I saw a decimal point that was a comma.
Yeah.
Yes, that still gives me a hiccup every now and then. Yeah, that one gets me.
That's good.
So, was there anything else you guys want to talk about? Did you guys have any struggles this week or any challenges?
Well, I have a comment. Considering that America is the one that does everything different from like almost everywhere else, maybe we're the ones that are backwards.
You think? That's why I put my foot down on gray. I refuse.
Possibly comments.
We have a lot.
Which, by the way, it really was frustrating trying to look up the word chippings and not finding the answer and having to go into Google and write chippings UK slang in order to get the proper definition of what the hell that word meant.
Chippings.
And it was all over the book we just last read. It was all over the place. And when it's not natural to you, it's like it stood out like a sore thumb.
I bet. Oh, I didn't think about that.
It wasn't in any of my dictionaries.
Of course you didn't think about that. Well, you're from England.
I put in chipping dictionary and I got nothing because evidently Google knows I'm an American, so it wouldn't give me the proper definition. I was so frustrated.
Yeah, because the driveway was covered in chippings, wasn't it? Yeah.
And they were kicking chippings and picking up chippings and throwing chippings and looking at people and thinking of chippings, and there were chippings here and chippings there and chippings everywhere.
Is that like so? What is? Because so
they're little stones.
The one I got. Okay, so because I just looked it up and it says to occasionally or recreationally use heroin without becoming truly addicted.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
not the same thing.
No, it's not. It reminds me of when I read Train Spotting. When I first read the book Train Spotting, it was like I was reading Spanish.
Oh, jeez.
Or Greek. I had no idea what anyone was saying at all. And it was all English, but no idea. It was Scottish English.
I know. I read a lot of, I watch a lot of BBC, British television, and I really enjoy that. So I picked up a lot of the slang. But yeah, I've never heard of chippings.
Strangely, chippings is a word that we don't generally use today. I don't know what we would use, but chippings is a word that comes from the time that the book was set in the 70s. Really, it's quite an old word too. Strange.
70s.
It was all over
like that.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
The name of the title of the book should have been "Searching for God in the Chickens."
Yeah.
Much more accurate title. Okay. Does anyone want to read anything today?
I don't think I deserve to.
I've got a
Okay,
bit if you
Cheryl.
want. Yeah.
I
Okay.
love it when you read.
Okay. It's just the end of that flash fiction that I talked about. It's just a couple of hundred words. But it was she who had entered the figures incorrectly, apparently, and now it was her fault that they were stuck in this narrow lane with a broken van, no phone signal, and night already descending. She began her coping mechanisms, trying to concentrate on the positive things, putting the negatives of their situation into a box, lid closed. Yes, the holiday had started in a different way to that which they were expecting, but it was an adventure, wasn't it? Life was all about experiences, and this one we laughed about with friends and in months and years to come. When there was a sound, footsteps on chippings. Footsteps on gravel, not confident like Gavin's. I just, you see, I didn't use chippings. I used gravel. So
you should have. It would have been so perfect.
Footsteps. There was a sound. Footsteps on gravel, not confident like Gavin's, but hesitant, quiet, and yet not quiet. She wound down the window in the passenger door. Gavin, is that you? She held her breath. There were no sounds, no gravel, no footsteps. Her anxiety ramped up, and the seriousness of the situation threatened to overwhelm her. Is that you, Gavin? If so, please stop pissing about. I'm frightened. She waited for a few seconds, not daring to breathe, silently cursing her trembling voice. What I've done today, I know it's all my fault. I realise that now, and I'm sorry, really, really sorry. But please stop frightening me. There was a movement on the opposite side, twigs brushing against the bodywork, someone moving past the van, squeezing between and the hedgerow. The door opened. And that's where it ended.
Ooh. Dun, dun, dun. I am reading one of the stories I came up with the writing prompt. It's 107 words. I'm going to revise it. It's probably going to end up being about 500 words because it needs nuance and it needs more depth. Mm-hmm. But I like the original idea that came out of it. And so what was the writing prompt? I think it was a stack of letters or something like that. Mm-hmm. No, it wasn't a stack of letters. It was a rumpled letter or something. So I wrote, a stack of letters called out to Sarah as she sat in the dirty room sorting her mother's effects. Her father's name in the upper corner dragged memories through her mind as she flipped through the tattered paper. She reached in and pulled out 3 more stacks wrapped in pale blue and yellow ribbons. A single letter in the bottom of the box addressed a single letter in the bottom of the box was addressed to a name she didn't recognize and stood out. She ran her fingers over her mother's Spencerian hand. The military stamp said, "Return to sender, deceased." She opened it and let her eyes drift over the paper, stopping upon the words, "I'm pregnant."
Whoa. Wow.
So I'm going to have fun messing with that.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot of room to go with that. So it's going to be fun. That's my goal for today. Make that a real story.
Excellent. Very, very good.
And on that note, I want to thank you both for being here this week. And I want to thank all of our...
And I think we lost her.
No, just cutting out.
If you would like and check shows, please visit.
Yeah, we lost your sign off, but that I think that's okay. And now we've lost you completely.
Do visit Literary Roadhouse.
She's got it on her recording, so we're good.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. We'll say, I suppose, once I say bye-bye.
All right, well.
See you next week.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.